Welcome to Swahili Nation.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Swahili Nation, One Africa. This is me, come back again, guys, and it's been a while. And this time, man, I'm just here to do reaction. You'll know that that's how I started this channel. I started with reaction, and today I'm back here, and I just wanna be doing reaction of these kind of videos. You know what I'm saying? Professor Lumumba, he's a very important figure to our continent. Is someone that I look up to, I learn, and this is exclusive. I don't know if I'm supposed to say, but I reached out to Professor Lumumba since last year, and this year I requested for him to be my mentor, and he already replied to me, and I'm just waiting to know what is the next step. So I'm really excited for this journey, because he has been mentoring me for a long time, even without knowing me, but by just watching his videos and watching his speech. I don't even remember how many of his speeches I watched and how many times I've been watching. I've been watching sometimes a lot, like more than 2 times or 3 times the same speech, because there's just so much knowledge. And Professor Lumumba is somebody that we all need in Africa. It reminds me of the fighters, all the heroes that we had back in the days, but he's here with us today, and I just hope a young generation like me and you will learn a lot from him, and I hope I get that opportunity to even stay with him, to be with him. You know, I would love to be with him even for 1 month or 1 year, you know what I'm saying? Just to learn and to listen and to study, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to get everything out of him. So hopefully this journey, it will be very successful, and hopefully he will eventually and finally, you know, become my official mentor. You know what I'm saying? I really need that. Anyways, I'm here today to do a reaction on the speech that he gave just a couple days ago in Rwanda. And he was not alone, but he was in the panel with the chairperson of African Union, and I think a minister in Rwanda, and some other person as well. But I pay attention to what Professor Lumumba was saying. So what I'm going to play here right now is him responding to questions that he was asked. And I'm telling you guys, back it up, all right? Put on your seatbelt and wait for this. This is going to, yeah. I don't know. I've already listened to this more than 3 times, you know, 4 times. So I'm just going to go to do reaction again with you guys. All right, let's do this. Professor Lumumba, let's go. Hopefully I can call you. Hopefully I'll call you soon, my mentor. Welcome to Swahili Nation.
Thank you so much.
Come on, let's go. Yeah.
And remind us that interference in Africa started with slavery.
Exactly.
When slavery had lost its value, it graduated into colonization.
That's true.
And that is the context in which Berlin must be seen. When the European powers sat in Berlin and divided the continent of Africa into spheres of influence. When colonization had lost its luster through a combination of certain realities and agitation from the continent, we regained our independence. But as John Henry Clark, that great African-American, said, we regained independence by mimicking European governance systems.
That's pretty bad.
And he rightly said,
that's pretty bad.
African country will ever succeed.
That's true.
On the basis
you can never succeed when you're using the foreign system to your own development.
Project
just doesn't work.
Instituted. And all of us will remember Kwame Nkrumah's book, Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. And he there says the most dangerous We are now in a neo-colonial stage when the European powers are at their most diabolical, when the Americans are at their most diabolical. And it's not lost on me that they'll be meeting in Hiroshima next week.
They already had that meeting.
As the G7.
Yeah, G7.
And how do they interfere? They interfere militarily. They ensure that you in the military are trained in Sandhurst, are trained in West Point, so they affect your mind. They interfere diplomatically, sometimes through gunboat diplomacy, and that is why you see sometimes your typical European ambassador treats our heads of states in a condescending manner.
It's pretty bad. We have seen that a lot.
They interfere through institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. They interfere by ensuring that our economic infrastructure is beholden to theirs through dollarization. They interfere through education.
Yeah.
They interfere by influencing our processes, by lending us advisors who tell us what to do. The neo-colonial project is alive and well, and it is at its most dangerous, and we Africans must smell the
yes.
movie. If we don't, they are going to continue to interfere. How else do they interfere? Through NGOs.
That's true.
CEDA, UK,
USAID. Yeah.
These are Trojan horses that are introduced into our countries for the purpose of influencing our processes. And they infiltrate our institutions. Right now, if you look at the African Development Bank, look at the shareholding.
Americans, Germans, Japanese, French.
The French. And the Europeans have done their bit. They also interfere through...
Professor Lumumba must be protected at all costs. I really hope, man,
independent nation. They are not
this guy lived long.
Sovereign states, former French-speaking nations. These are the instruments that they interfere through. And how do we then deal with this situation? We Africans must now begin to recognize, and this was recognized as early as 1963, and the chair of the commission is here. They'll be celebrating 60 years in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And
I think on the African Day.
60 years ago, on the 24th day of May, Kwame Nkrumah warned us. He said, if we are not united, they are going to interfere with us militarily. They are going to interfere with our economy. They are going to interfere with our agriculture. They are going to interfere with our health. Our duty, and I hope that when African heads of states and government meet in Addis next week, it will not be another jamboree. Former speeches are read. I hope it will be an occasion to give meaning to Africa Agenda 2023. I hope it will be an occasion to give meaning to Africa continental area. I hope it will be an occasion to revitalize the Malabo Declaration, the Maputo Declaration, the Yamoussoukro Declaration. In other words, we Africans, as I conclude, we Africans must stop operating in silos. Rwanda alone will not confront
That's
them.
true.
Burundi alone will
Absolutely.
not confront them. But if we go
together
through the regional bodies and
African Union, yes.
Union, we may indeed succeed in putting away this bulwark. And remember, it is no longer just Europe. There is a new scramble for Africa. The Chinese are here.
We'll talk about that.
Here. The Qataris are here. All of
extremely
them
every single day. Yeah.
And the military bases that you see here is telling you that if you don't behave, we are going to use force.
And it's happening.
Sometimes I wish, and I'm saying this seriously, that we too had a nuclear weapon. That is what America.
Wow. 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 Had a nuclear weapon. He has a point there. And I know other people, they'll manipulate what he has said, but it's clear as it is. We wished we had that so that, you know, because they respect Kim Jong-un, even though he's a dictator. They cannot go there and interfere because of what he has. You know, it makes sense 100%. That is one of the poorest countries in the world. And they have a dictator, and they always want to go after, you know, these countries and, you know, occupy and do something that is not really, is not for the people. But they can't do that to North Korea because of what they have. It's a threat to them. Nobody can touch them. But Africa, we are too kind.
I'll answer your question, but I must also respond to what I hear the minister say.
All right, I love this.
First of all, when we talk the way we do, we are not blaming anybody.
Exactly. Let me say something about that. A lot of time, the things that we talk about, the missions that we do, there are people who constantly, I see the comments, I see them talking that, why are you guys complaining? Why are you guys blaming? Why are you guys victimizing yourself? There's a time we're going to address that, but there's a reason why we talk this way. There's a reason why we address things that are happening. And this is why Professor Lumumba is saying.
Of European and American and Russian and Chinese interference is a raw wound. It is not something that
it's not something that happened in the past. Yeah.
It is something
that is happening every single day.
Speak. And therefore, when we speak to it, we are speaking to it to warn ourselves of the reality. When we speak about the Danidas and the NGOs, these are bodies whose raison d'etre is to ensure that we remain in a perpetual state of begging. That is what we are doing to warn ourselves.
That's true. That's true.
And we are not for 1 minute saying that we will shut ourselves out from the rest of the world. What we are saying
that's not
is
the point.
that we must define how we engage with the whole world. And we
Come
are
on,
saying
man. That's
that
100%
as individual countries, we are weak. And the rest of the world wants to operate and to deal with us in our weak state. The United States of America are dealing with Rwanda on second-hand clothing. Rwanda cannot resist them. Burundi cannot. Kenya cannot. Uganda cannot. But
man, here's the thing. Like East Africa decided not to import second-hand clothing at all. But then single countries like Rwanda, you know, I think America persuaded Rwanda and then they started to import. And then later on, you know, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. So as we speak right now, we're still importing second-hand clothes, and because we didn't stood up with our decision as a people. So that's another thing. If you have a unity and you cannot really stick with the decision that you have made, that unit doesn't really work.
If we are East Africa with a population of 300 million, we can. If we are SADC, we can. If we are ECOWAS, we can. So this is what we are saying. And we are saying further that going forward, we must also recognize our internal weaknesses. And what is our weaknesses? Chinua Achebe said it very well. The problem of Africa is simply and squarely one of political leadership. The rank of many political leaders in Africa are thieves. Let's call them by their name. They are thieves.
Come on.
They are individuals who are not interested in the interest of this country. And as long as we continue electing such individuals into positions of power across Africa, they are going to be manipulated. What then is the responsibility of the citizenry? The responsibility of the citizenry is to make demands.
That's true.
The chairman here, I hope he has received the several letters that I have written to him. I've written several letters.
Right there on the spot, man. He's talking to African Union
the role of the African Union in peacemaking. I wrote to the chairman only last week about the situation in Sudan, saying we must solve our own problems. And I want to see a crusading African Union, so that it's not the Americans and the Saudi Arabians who are summoning them to Jeddah. It should be in Addis Ababa. In a nutshell, Joe, what I'm saying is that we have a responsibility to ourselves, both at the leadership level and at levels of the civic society. We must be engaged in a positive manner, and we must keep on shouting without being diplomatic. Because diplomacy is lulling us into a false sense of security. And lastly, I want to say this. When foreign powers come, we must always be reminded of these goodies that they bring to us. It used to be said of the Trojan War that even when the Greeks bear a gift, they do not mean well. They never mean well. And the sooner we say it, recognizing the external threat, recognizing the domestic weaknesses, the safer we are. Right now, as I conclude, there is a group of experts going around East Africa.
That's true.
Collecting views about the constitution of East Africa. I've just written to them this morning. They are leaving Kenya. If you ask 10 Kenyans, possibly only one knows they're in Kenya. Then they will be going to Burundi. If you ask your typical African about Africa Agenda 2063 out of 10, if 2 know about Africa Agenda 2063, you'll be lucky. If you ask them about the African Continental Free Trade Area 10, actually, people, if they don't 2 really know, you'll be lucky. In other words, we are not doing well. And I'm going to be blunt at these functions. If you ask the chair of the African Union, who funds the African Union, possibly 60% of the budget
right
is
there on the
funded.
spot.
He who pays the piper calls the tune. That is the reality of the world. We must begin to pay for our own things in order to be understood and to be respected. Thank you.
Thank you. I would have shared about this, that my suggestion to African Union, it was, you know, I've done research. More than 96% of people who voted, they said, we are willing to pay money for the African Union budget. And only 4% they said we're not willing. Probably they're not even African. But, or some Africans who do not even want African Union. Want Africa. And my suggestion was this to African Union. I said that, why don't you use us? Why don't we stop receiving all these aids and loans that we get from the outside? Because probably more than 60% of the budget of African Union is the loans and aids that comes from the Western countries. And, you know, Sankara once said that whoever feeds you controls you, and that's the fact. So why don't we pay for our own things? Why don't we fund our own African Union? If each one of us, entire continent, give only $1, a single dollar, diaspora Africans, they just $1. Do you know how much money we'll have? African Union will have? And we'll be able to do exactly everything else that is there. African Union will be able to stop the war that is going on in Sudan with no interference. Any crisis that is happening in Africa, African Union would be able to stop it. Because they'll be independent. They'll be free. We must be independent. We must be free, and we must be paying our own stuff. We must take care of our own things. If you're a daddy of the house, and then always, constantly, when you get through trouble, whatever, somebody else comes to take care of your house, man, you're not really dad of the house. There's somebody else who is leading that house. And you must ask yourself, am I the dad of this house? Why am I not responsible? We must be responsible of our own things. And African Union, please, we're ready. We're willing. Let's stop receiving these loans and aid. Let's support our own organizations and run our own organizations with our own money. That's what we got to do.
Thank you.
Right on point.
I think let me give a right of reply LUMUMBA. To Chairperson to that comment about the AU funding. But before then, the good professor says he has sent some good letters with good ideas to you.
Assuming he receives them or they are caught up in the bureaucracy. Thank you very much.
He said, Professor Lumumba, man. He told him right on the spot, as I assuming he received the letters, or it's called in bureaucracy. You know, these things. That's why sometimes it's hard, man, because you might send the letter, you might send the request, but it will never get there. We'll never get there because of all this hierarchical, culture that we have.
Professor's question by
oh my God,
reminding us that
I love this guy, man. I love Lumumba, man.
Several times to define.
This is my African daddy right here, man.
In order to confront and engage. In the area of trade as early as 1980, under the Lagos Plan of Action, Africa took the view that in order to go forward, we must have a master plan of how we are going to have enhanced intra-African trade and intra-African engagement. Of course, the Lagos Plan of Action came a cropper, and in many ways, Africa Agenda 2063 is a rehash of the Lagos Plan of Action. In other words, Africa recognizes the need to define herself and to define her agenda. And I do not begrudge nations that define themselves and their agenda. Ronald Reagan once said it, and I agreed with him, that every nation does what is in her best interest. And I have no problem with that.
That's true.
The problem that we have is that at critical moments in African history, we have failed to seize the moment. You will remember in 1917 at the Champaran campaign,
1917.
Mahatma Gandhi told Charlie Andrews, I do not want you to
participate. As if he was there. It's right there.
At this point in time, the Indians must believe that they can do it themselves. In other words, there comes a time in the history of a nation when even friends of goodwill must be told, keep aside. We want to believe that we can do it, and your help must be surreptitious and subterranean if you are a person of goodwill.
Did you hear that? There must come a time that even the friends of goodwill that we have, we tell them, stop right there. We must do it by ourselves. Because that's how you train how to take care of your own things, how to take care of your own problems. All right. Not every single time to need help. What help does is that is paralyzing you, stopping you from growing, stopping you from being able to take responsibility. Because every time you go through something, someone is there to take care of you. Someone there is to help you. If your daddy or your mommy, she is always there. When you want to fall down, she's always there to pick you up. She's always there so you never fall before. If one day you come and you fall, you're not going to be able to stand up again. We must learn how to walk, how to run, and how to fly. But we cannot do that because we constantly receive help from them every time. And that doesn't work. Look at India today. Look at where they are.
Is what we must define for ourselves.
Look at where they are,
In the year 2005, the former Prime Minister of Britain, Tony Blair, put together 17 individuals in what was then called our common interest. The report on the African Commission. The Prime Minister, he was then the President of the European Union, from which Britain has now left, and he was also the President of the G8 at that time before the exclusion of Russia. They produced a report. Right now, when I see the Blair Institute moving around Africa,
and it's all over the world, even in Tanzania,
exactly what was
during COVID-19.
Report, and I have a copy of it, not for the benefit of Africa, but for the benefit of the Institute. And what they have done is to sugarcoat it and camouflage it for the purpose of hoodwinking Africa and for the purposes of creating an environment which benefits foreign companies to the detriment of the continent of Africa. So that some of these engagements are anodinal. They simply lull us into a false sense of security. Do I blame them? No. That is why I agree that we must decolonize all learning. I don't know who said this, that if you have that the happiness of the slave,
the happiness of the slave,
comfort of the slave owner.
The comfort of the slave owner.
If Africa does not recognize this, then Africa will never recognize and realize our potential. The saying goes that if you behave like grass, goats will eat you.
Wow, Lumumba, man, Professor Lumumba, he has a lot to say, a lot of quotes. If you behave like a grass, goats will eat you. Africans, we constantly behave like grass, man, and we've been eaten for so long. It's a time to behave like goats. You know what I'm saying? It is the time.
We in the African continent behave like grass, and we are fit for eating. And that is what I'm saying. Going
so we're
forward
fit for
in
eating.
a strategic engagement such as this, it is incumbent upon the continent of Africa. And remember, I said there is a new scramble, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle. There was 1 month in this continent when the Russian foreign minister was here, the American foreign minister was here, the Chinese foreign minister was here, the French president was here, the Turkish president was here, within a period of 2 weeks. What were they looking for? What is in their best interest? They engaged little countries. They don't want to engage the East African community.
Exactly.
They don't want to engage SADC. They don't want to engage ECOWAS, because when they are big, they are not manipulable. And when...
Guys, that's why we say unity is very important. Because when you're big, when you're united, you cannot be manipulated. But if it's just a single country, you can't be manipulated because the leader of that country is basically just one president, single president. So whatever that is good for them, they can decide it. That's why we say Africa is not weak. But we are weak because we are divided. We don't want to be united. We are not one. And therefore we can easily be manipulated.
On the 14th and 15th days of last year, the African heads of states and government were summoned, and I use the word summoned very deliberately, to Washington, D.C. After the president had spoken to them and given them photo ops, they were given, Africa was given 60 billion. 54 countries, 60 billion. And then
it was the loan, by the way.
The president started engaging in bilateral agreements with Burundi, with Lesotho, with Kenya.
Small countries.
That is what we are saying, that going forward we must be conscious. And as to training, our own Ngugi wa Thiong'o, in a book called The River Between, tells his lead character Wayaki, go unto him, learn what he has taught you, but bring it home and customize it for the benefit of our people. Learning is universal and defies geography, but there is wisdom in using that learning for our benefit. And very lastly, how do we distinguish the institutional conceptual West, which is diabolical, and the individual members of those countries that actually sometimes are on our side? Institutionalized conceptual West, as articulated through government, is fundamentally diabolical. Their pretension to the contrary notwithstanding. And therefore, when we engage with them, we must have our guards up. We are capable, in my view, of discerning who is better, and that is the duty of our leadership. Our leadership doesn't do a good job out of it, and that is why the demand from the civil society, the demand from academia must remind leadership at all times, you are dining, and I'm using this as a term of art, that when you are dining with the devil, you must do so with a long spoon. Thank you.
When you're dining with the devil, we must use long spoon. Let me know in the comment section, what does it mean, guys? Let me know.
Perhaps you might have. Let us not drown ourselves in semantics. This is my view with due respect. First of all, let us remember that, and I always warn us Africans, if I was using my mother tongue to define interference, or using a Kiswahili word, what meaning would it carry? And sometimes we find ourselves prisoners of Portuguese, prisoners of French, prisoners of English, or any other colonial language which we have appropriated and which we now deploy in terms of engagement. History has demonstrated, and my good friend Kegoro said it, history has demonstrated not once, not twice, that the intentions appear to be noble in the beginning, but when they have come in like the proverbial Trojan horse, they go beyond their mandate. Show me what is happening to Libya today. Show me what is happening to the Central African Republic. Show me what is happening to Somalia today. They were all well-intentioned, and see the product. A tree shall be judged by its fruit. A mango that says it is an orange is still a mango. Thank you.
The mango that says it's an orange is still a mango. Every time, Lumumba, when he finishes sentences, he says something really...
The general from Uganda,
love this guy,
let me, in my view, correct history.
So here somebody asked him a question and he made a mistake in history. And he's lecturing him about his own country.
And it is not true that what he said happened. I know, for example, that Kabarega of the Bunyoro Kitara Empire resisted the British and was exiled. It is also true that the British approach to colonization was divide and rule.
That's true.
So what they did was to divide and plant ethnic animosity and entered into pacts with the Buganda kingdom, other kingdoms. In Kenya, they did so with the Maasai and other kingdoms. So it was a strategy. So the purported invitation was not an invitation, but people were led by their nose. People were led by their nose to believe that something good was going to happen to them. And I would urge the good general to read a book by Adekeye Adebajo, The Curse of Berlin, Africa After the Cold War. He speaks to these things in a very proper way. And in my view, that book is useful for all of us who are here. Now, to the question that I've been asked, that is, what can Africa do, particularly with foreign interference? Let us understand that the international economic architecture, as I see it, is one in which Africa did not participate, does not participate in a meaningful way. Take, for example, the Bretton Woods institution that we know about, the World Bank and the IMF. Created in 1944 in Bretton Woods in New Hampshire, British economists and American economists immediately after the World War II to target the reparation of Europe through the Marshall Plan. We are grafted into it, and then we become beholden to them. So that when you hear IMF is in your country, you ought to be very worried, because the prescriptions is one size fits all. And if you doubt me, you will remember the prescriptions of the IMF during the structural adjustment in 1980s. Not a single country came out of it in a proper shape. We are not involved in that architecture. Remember also the WTO. The very first meeting of the United Nations in 1945 in San Francisco had a component of the WTO. The WTO, as we know it today, is also constructed in a manner that does not benefit us. The idea is that Africa continues to remain a producer of primary goods, and we continue to consume goods that have value addition. How then has Africa tried to react to this? There have been several initiatives. The very early initiatives were not even constructed by Africa. If you remember the African Pacific, Caribbean Pacific, the Lomé Convention, and the Cotonou Declaration, these were initiatives which were influenced from outside. It is after the failure of the Lomé Convention that Africa now said, we want to have our own, hence the Lagos Plan of Action of 1980, because Africa recognized trade within Europe is at almost 60%.
That's
trade
true.
within North America is at anything 57%. Trade within Asia is at 50%.
Yeah.
Trade within Latin America is
It's
at 40%. Trade within Africa,
15%.
But the Lagos Plan of Action did not realize the dreams that we set for ourselves. So Africa has always identified the solution to our problems. In fact, and the president of the commission, or the chairman commission, will agree with me. If you listen to Kwame Nkrumah when he spoke on 24th day of May, 1963, he said, the only way in which we are going to ensure that we survive in this hostile world is to have one government. Perhaps
that's true.
Some said he was naive,
that is true.
He was too idealistic, but he could see it.
Look at where we are today.
He could see that the smaller we are, the weaker we are in all aspects. He said, even one army, even one foreign policy, he said. And people thought he was naive. In 2013, when we came up with Africa Agenda 2063, and I invite you to read the letter written by Nkosazana and Dlamini Zuma, from whom the president took over. She is apologizing to Kwame Nkrumah. She's saying, we wish we listened to you. So what are we doing as Africa in terms of trying to deal with this foreign interference? Having recognized these, first of all, under the REX, the East African community, you remember there was the Committee of Fast Tracking of the East African Community and East African Confederation. The first president of East Africa ought to have been sworn in 2010. It did not happen. As I'm talking to you, there is now a body that is moving around trying to create a constitution for the East African Confederacy, which is a realization that if we want to interfere, if we want to stop foreign interference and we want to engage constructively, we must have a big market.
That's true.
Market will be the East
African
market. Hence, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and now the Democratic
We must come together, guys.
And the Somalis are coming in, and I'm told
and
the Ethiopians are also contemplating.
Welcome.
And not only in East Africa, in ECOWAS, there was even an attempt to create a currency called the ECO, which was torpedoed, as you know, by the French. And in SADC, these are ways and means of immunizing ourselves. There was even an attempt to create a currency called the ECO, which was torpedoed, as you know, by the French. And in SADC, these are ways and means of immunizing ourselves against the machinations of not only Europe, but China. China is increasingly coming into the continent. Russia is increasingly coming into the continent. Turkey is increasingly coming into the continent. Qatar is increasingly coming into the continent. The Emiratis are coming into the continent. So we are seeing all these things happening. But beyond the REX, there is also the African Union. If you read Africa Agenda 2063 and the 7 aspirations, they are designed specifically to ensure that we form a bulwark against these foreign interference. And let me correct myself if I was misunderstood. They are small nations. Let's not delude ourselves. The theory of sovereignty of nations is a fiction. Right now, we will have meeting of the G7. Why? Because they are bigger economies and we are not there. Then we will have the G20, which are slightly bigger. Then they are the smaller nations, and they met recently in Brussels. So we must distinguish the fiction of equality of nations and the reality of nations. And when, therefore, we want to negotiate at the continent of Africa, we are saying the bigger we are, the better we are.
That's true.
So efforts are there.
The bigger we are, the better we are.
I'm saying, if we look at Agenda 2063 and we look at Africa Continental Free Trade Area to eliminate tariff and non-tariff barriers, to allow for the free movement of persons, then we would be in a better position to engage. And I'll give this example. Look at East Africa. We said that we did not want second-hand clothing. Rwanda accepted. Then Uganda and Tanzania were persuaded by the United States of America, and we dropped out. This is what divide and rule is all about. So these things that we are talking about, they are not going to be realized in your lifetime. These are intergenerational battles. And our duty, as Nyerere said on the 6th day of March 1997, this generation has a duty to carry the torch. And the worst mistake that we can make is to lose hope and to despair.
Yeah.
Thank you. When we were students, we were taught history of Pan-African movements, so the education system actually told us about Africa. I now know in many African countries where history is not taught. So
That's
when
sad.
you stop teaching history, then you begin to see that we do not even know what is happening. And I think that one of the things that we must do is to look at our curriculum in our respective institutions of higher learning. It is only in that way that we'll begin to plant the seed of Pan-Africanism, and it is only in that way that we will educate our young people. Indeed, I dare say that if Africa Agenda 2063 and all these initiatives are going to gain traction, it is the younger generation that must, in a manner of speaking, be indoctrinated. And I'm using the word indoctrinated very, very deliberately, so that they can identify with this struggle for Pan-Africanism. And I think that that is very important going forward, so that forums such as this, and you remember earlier, and then I stopped when I said that I hope the meeting on the next week in the Pan-African, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, will not be just pro forma. It will be a meeting at which the heads of states and the Council of Ministers raise critical issues with a clear plan of action, so that the Secretariat has things to cascade to the people for purposes of consumption, so that we can begin to see milestones as we move towards fulfilling the Pan-African dream. I want to stop there so that others may also enrich the debate. Thank you.
Welcome to Swahili Nation.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Man, Professor Lumumba, first of all, thank you, Professor, for your knowledge and for your heart for Africa, man. For everything that he has been saying for a couple of years now. If you have been paying attention and listening, I think it's something that it's going to change Africa, and these speeches are going to live forever. You know what I'm saying? We'll be our kids, the next generation, will be watching at this and just admiring that, oh, we had somebody like that, you know. So it's our duty. It's a call upon African Union. I know African Day, it's on 25th. What's the day of today? Today is 24th, so tomorrow is African Day, and I hope, man, our leaders and African Union would really make the choice, the best decision for the people. Not just bureaucracy and politics, but for the people. Because African Union has to be there for Africans, right? If it's not there for Africans, then we're not really doing what we're supposed to do. And what we have to do is securing Africa for the benefit of Africans and the next generation as well. We need to do our part to do that for our next people, our next generation. So, yeah, you guys let me know in the comment section. Share your thoughts about this speech and the points that he was talking about. Anything that you'd like to add, that's where we can have conversation. I usually go and read some comments. So, you know, please do so, and share this link with somebody. Copy this video, share with somebody, so that we can spread this word and we can spread this message of One Africa. I love you guys. Stay right there. Don't go nowhere. Swahili Nation, One Africa. I'll see you later. Love you.
Welcome to Swahili Nation.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Out of here.